Hi Stampers, this is Becky Gifford, independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And creator of thesocialstamper.com. This video is going to be a very basic tutorial. It's going to teach you how to make a card start to finish, and it's going to assume that you've never really stamped before. So the very first thing I'm going to do is show you some supplies that you're going to need to get started. The first supply that I would recommend, but is not an absolute necessity, is a paper trimmer. This is Stampin' Up's paper trimmer. It's by Fiskars. On my little arm over here, I have a cutting blade. The orange says "Caution, I'm sharp," and a scoring blade. This one is dull, and it's going to make an indent in your cardstock that's going to give you a really crisp, clean fold in your card and projects. And the nice thing about the Stampin' Up paper trimmer is that you don't have to worry about the company redesigning the paper trimmer and then not being able to find the refill blades for it. I've wasted a lot of money in the past buying a paper trimmer and then not being able to find the refills once my blade gets dull. And that is just a huge money pit, and I'm not a big fan of wasting money. So that's the very first thing that you're going to need. The next thing that you're going to absolutely need is some type of cardstock. For this card that we're going to be making, I'm going to use Tempting Turquoise cardstock in Very Vanilla. Stampin' Up's cardstock is dyed all the way through the core, which means that if you tear it, it's not going to give you an ugly white edge. It's going to give you an edge that's the same color as the cardstock you're using. Also, the Very Vanilla and Whisper white cardstock has an exceptionally smooth surface. That's perfect for making really crisp stamped images. Another absolute necessity with stamping is a stamp set. For our card, we're going to be using this Pattern Party set. This is a clear mount stamp set, and all our clear mount stamps come in a clear DVD case, and so it's really easy for storage, and you can see all of your images right out front. These are less expensive than our wood mount options, mostly because you have to purchase an acrylic block separately. So the acrylic blocks are a bit of an investment, but they should last forever. So once you buy a clear block, you won't have to keep buying it, which makes your actual stamp sets a lot less expensive. The other option that Stampin' Up has is a wood mount stamp set. As you can see, these come in a case still, so you can keep your stamps organized, but they're a little bit clunkier than the sleek DVD cases of the clear mount stamps. The nice thing is that every time you purchase a stamp set, you're also going to be purchasing a wood block. So if you're not interested in buying the acrylic blocks, or you're not concerned about storage space, these stamps are permanently mounted on these blocks, so you don't have to remount them every time you want to use them. It just really comes down to preference. The next thing that you'll absolutely need if you're going to be stamping a card is an ink pad. And Stampin' Up's ink pads are unique because they store the ink pad upside down. That's perfect for keeping the stamp pad moist so that you're not having to re-ink as often. That saves you money. You'll see that there's 3 little indented dots on one side. You're going to place your fingers there and pop it open, flip the top, and then slide it open. You'll also notice that the stamp pad is actually a little bit raised from the surface. That really helps with inking large surface areas like background stamps or large stamped images, because it's not going to give you an ugly line from running into the plastic. To close, you just pop it back the other direction and flip it closed. Okay, so let's get started. For our card that we're going to be making today, we're going to be using the banner part of the Pattern Party set, the presents, and then we're going to be using this little argyle print down here. So just 3 stamped images, but we're only going to be using 1 color of ink, 2 colors of cardstock, and 1 small accessory, as well as a couple adhesives that I'm going to tell you about. To begin any card, you're going to need to decide what size you want to make it. A standard card is half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. So that's what I'm going to show you how to cut. This paper trimmer has a little arm that swings out. So we're going to swing our arm out and set that down on our work surface. And I'm going to slide those out of the way and then slide my cardstock underneath to 5.5 inches. Because on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, half of 11 is obviously 5.5. So I'm going to cut this in half, slide the little cutting blade down, and I'm going to close this arm and flip my paper trimmer around. I keep both my cutting and scoring blades on the arm. That's mostly so that I keep track of them, because I lose track of small things very easily. So I keep them both on there. You don't have to do that. They snap off and on very easily. So if you don't want to keep them on there, that's fine. But for the fold part of it, to make a really crisp fold, I'm going to go over to 4.25 inches. Make sure that I'm using my black scoring blade and not my orange cutting blade. And just slide moderately, pressing moderately hard on there. And I'm going to set that aside. Now, this next tool is not an absolute necessity. Excuse me. Cat's got my tongue. But it's something that I recommend for making the crisp fold even deeper. It's called a bone folder. This is Stampin' Up's bone folder. I think they call them that because they probably used to be made out of bone way back in the day, but they're just plastic now. But I'm going to just push down to make that fold really deep. That way when I set my card open, it's not just going to fly open and fall over. It helps make that fold really crisp. So that's going to be my card base. That's really basic. The next part is the part that I'm actually going to be stamping on. I wanted to leave a little border of the Tempting Turquoise around the edge of my stamped image. So I'm going to subtract 1/4 inch from this 4.25 by 5.5 sheet of cardstock, or front of my card, for my actual cardstock I'm going to be stamping on. So this is the very vanilla, and it's cut down to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. And that's going to give me a nice border of Tempting Turquoise once I adhere those layers together. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and get my ink set up. Just pop it open, flip, and slide. And set that over here. And to mount my stamps, I've got my clear block, and then I have the actual stamp. I'm just going to set my block down and position my stamp wherever I want. I can position it on here however I want. In fact, I can even do multiple images on the same block, which is an advantage of a clear block. And I'm just going to press down. I've already have a little bit of ink on this stamp, so normally it's not going to make my hands dirty, but this one is making my hands a little dirty. That's okay. So now I've got my stamp mounted on my block, and I'm going to ink my stamp. And I'm just going to kind of tap it on my stamp pad. Just every now and then I'll check and make sure that it's inked evenly, but that looks inked pretty evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and position it wherever I want on my cardstock. That's another advantage of these clear blocks, is I can see exactly where I'm stamping. That looks good, so I'm going to press down. I'm going to make sure that I'm not wiggling it side to side or rocking it back and forth. That's going to give you some really smeared looking edges. If you're not happy with it, if you stamped the first time and you're like, no, I messed up, just flip the cardstock over and stamp again. You can't really mess anything up that's not fixable in this hobby, which is nice, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Okay, so for the very next step, I'm going to teach you how to do a technique called stamping off. If you want the same color image as you've already stamped, or that you haven't stamped already, and you want it to be just a little bit lighter shade, this technique is perfect. So these are the present images, and I've got it mounted to my clear block. This is the size C block. By the way, that first one that we used was a size E block, but the C as in cat block. I'm going to go ahead and ink that image. And then I'm going to, once it's well inked, I'm going to stamp it on a piece of paper, a scratch piece of paper. And then I'm going to position it where I want and stamp onto my card, just like that. So now I've got the same exact color, just a little bit lighter shade of that same color. I did that because I want this to be the focal point, so people are immediately drawn to happy birthday to you, because that's the whole point of this card. And then I want the presents to be there, but a bit of an afterthought. So I've got that done. And now I'm going to teach you how to do that really cute little ribbon or fishtail edge in my strip of cardstock. So I'm going to set that aside. This next tool is not a necessity, but again, it's something that I think that will be really helpful to you. These are Stampin' Up's paper snips. They come with this handy little case so that you're not cutting through whatever storage bag or box you have them in. But I held out for a really long time buying these. I just figured they were another small pair of scissors, but that's just absolutely not the case. These are precision honed so that they cut all the way to the very end of these scissors, which means if I position my scissors to cut so far, they're going to cut all the way there. I don't have to guess, you know, oh, my scissors only cut until about there. I know if you guys have used scissors enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So to make this fishtail edge, I'm going to take my paper snips and position them in the middle of this strip of cardstock, and I'm going to make sure I'm only cutting in as high as I want the fishtail to go deep into my cardstock. So I'm going to start from the corner and snip and meet the edge, that little top peak there, and then I'm going to come in from the other side and again meet that top snip there. So now I have a really pretty fishtail edge on my strip of cardstock to embellish my card. My phone, I just got a text message, so that's pretty standard. I'm going to ink my Argyle image like this. That looks inked pretty well. And then I'm going to stamp that right in the middle of my strip of cardstock, so right about there. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but now you can see that I've got that cute little Argyle pattern on that strip of cardstock. Now I'm going to stick a little brad in the middle of here. Our brads, these are the neutrals brads. They're the 5/16 inch size, and they come 80 pieces to this container, so about 20 in each color. Normally there'd be silver. I'm out of the silver, but there's also white, a chocolate brown, and this very vanilla. We're going to be using very vanilla since that's the color cardstock we use to stamp on. And normally I would use a paper piercing tool to make a little hole where I want my brad to go. That way it doesn't bend the cardstock as I'm trying to push the brad through. But since I'm assuming that you don't really have any supplies, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can use a safety pin. So I'm just going to pick my cardstock up, and right where I want my brad to go, which is right about there, I'm just going to make a little poke. So it made a little tiny little pinhole that's going to guide where I want my brad to go. Then I'm just going to stick my brad down through there and bend the little legs so that it stays in place, just like that. So now I've got my embellishment ready to go to put onto my card. But very first, I'm going to adhere this stamped image to my card base that's right here. I'm going to be putting that on there like that. To do that, I'm going to be using this Tombow multi-purpose adhesive. It's a liquid glue. The advantage is it has a skinny tip for precision application. It also has a wide spreader tip that you can use to spread out glue over a wider area. I usually use a precision tip for everything, but sometimes it's handy to have that little spreader tip. The other good thing about this glue is it really is multi-purpose. You can use it for just about everything. And in addition to that, if you adhere it or put it onto your cardstock and then let it dry, then it'll make a temporary hold to whatever you adhere it to versus a permanent hold. So if you're wanting to position something and kind of be able to move it around but still have it stick, that's when that temporary adhesive property is really nice. I'm I'm just going to start out with just a really small line around my edges. And this stuff, a little bit goes a long way. You don't need very much. And then I always just do a little squiggle through the middle. And I'm going to adhere this to my card base. Just like that. Awesome. Another thing to check for that I didn't just do, but it's helpful if you're very first starting off, before you glue your layers together, make sure that your card is opening the right way. Because if I had adhered this face up with it opening this way, that just wouldn't have made sense. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside for a second. Okay, now I'm going to show you a really cool adhesive that is absolutely one of my favorites. It's called Dimensionals. It's going to come in a package like this, and there's 300 of these little foam dots. These dots will help things pop off or add dimension to your projects, and they're just really neat. So I'm going to use 2 Dimensionals. I'm just going to peel them off, turn this over, and I'm going to stick them about right there, and maybe even one right here. I don't want to stick them too far to this edge because that's going to hang off my card a little bit. And then I just need to peel off the backing. And so now it's sticky. I'll pull my card over here, and this embellishment is going to go right about there. Again, this is not a science. It's just kind of eyeballing things a lot of the time. But that is your finished card. It's great for birthdays and great for friends. It's perfect for kids. You can change the colors up to anything you want to do. So there's a lot that you can do with this card, but it's a very basic card, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching.